Welcome back into our studios, Representative Steve Berch, District 15 in Boise, third term in the House. Representative Berch is also a member of the House Business Committee, House Education Committee, and House Local Government Committee. Thanks for coming in for a few minutes with us this morning, walking down the street a little bit.
My pleasure.
Did you walk or did you drive?
I did drive.
Okay.
Want to make sure I got here.
And that's fine. That's fine.
Want to make sure I got here on time. So,
let's start out this morning. We're now almost a month into the session, and it seems, especially the House, seems that they've done a lot more this early in the session than we had done last year. I know at this time, a lot of our listeners are going, are they ever going to do anything? And then everything gets pushed, of course, to the end of the legislature, and who knows, maybe there'll be a lot of that this time. But I want to talk, now that we've been into it a month, with the issues that are being brought up so far. Are these the issues that most voters are concerned about, that we're starting to see so far in the first part of the legislative session?
Well, it's a great question because, the House is doing a lot of stuff. The question is, are they doing the right stuff? So Boise State University every year does a survey of the public, and they do a very thorough cross-section of inputs from everyone in the entire state. And they identified several top issues that voters and citizens are telling them they care about. What are the top issues they care about? And these were the issues ranked in priority order. One was education. Second was jobs and the economy. Third was housing. Fourth was health care. Fifth was taxes. Sixth was the environment. And seventh was transportation. And that aligns pretty well with voters tell me at the door. These are the kind of bills we've seen coming through the legislature, the House and the Senate, just in the last several weeks. Redefining the word fetus to be preborn child, redefine the word gender to be sex, prohibit abortion in case of rape and incest, sue libraries if a book offends you, ban masks mandates, repeal Medicaid expansion, execute anyone by firing squad if convicted of lewd conduct with a minor, allow janitors, cafeteria workers, and visitors to carry a concealed gun into an elementary school or any school, allow concealed guns on college and university campuses, and define domestic terrorism in a way that would exclude domestic terrorists. And this is the stuff that apparently the majority party thinks is what's most important. And to me, it's totally out of touch with what voters really care about and has a profound impact on their lives.
Why is the legislature out of touch?
It's an election year. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the folks in the legislature a lot of these bills are written to appeal to a very small but very motivated, energized audience that votes in Republican primaries.
Okay.
Because it doesn't take very much to win a Republican primary. And if you don't have a challenger in November, if you win in May, you've won in November.
Let's talk about fiscal policy. How much did the legislature exclude last year?
So that's a great question, too, because, I just came from a Meridian Chamber of Commerce event, and a lot of people were concerned about property taxes going up. How do we fund EMS services? Will the launch program have enough money, and so forth? And the answer to all these questions is money. So the question becomes, where does the money come from? So one of my favorite parlor game questions is, I'm going to ask the two of you, keeping in mind that the legislature appropriated $4.9 billion in fiscal 2023, how much do you think the legislature exempted from revenue collection just in sales tax exemptions last year?
What do you think, Mike?
Well, the fact that you're asking the question means it's probably a lot, and since it's over $4 billion and what you're talking about, $100 million.
100 million? What do you say?
400 million.
Right. The answer is $5.2 billion.
Okay, that's way off.
That is more than.
So it's more than they got.
They exempted more money they collected, and it's not that these exemptions are wrong or bad. What is wrong and bad is that they never get reviewed. They never expire. Some have been in place since the 1960s, and there's no objective criteria for determining if that tax break is a net long-term benefit to the citizens of the state or a gift to the recipient. So if we had a review process, and we're only one of 16 states that doesn't, if 20%, if we kept 80% of those tax breaks, sales tax exemptions, and only 20% were retired, that alone would flow over $1 billion every single year into the general fund. we'd have money to pay for facilities in education, and we wouldn't have school districts floating bonds and levies every year.
And these are exemptions then that clearly most of us aren't getting.
Well, actually, no. There's some are. For example, probably about half or a little more. I'd have to check on the latest percentage.
Okay.
Is the exception actually the technical term? Is the sales tax exception for services? So you don't pay sales tax on a haircut, and you don't pay sales tax on maintenance for your private jet. Okay. So it's not that it's wrong. The problem is there's no review process. In fact, even if only 5% of those exemptions could be determined to be obsolete or no longer make sense, that alone would flow $250 million every single year into the general fund. In 4 years, that's $1 billion. And that's where the money is the irresponsibility of anchoring our fiscal policies to the 1960s.
So do you put forth a bill then to get a review process?
Well, you can do that, but this is a huge task. There's an army of lobbyists in the Capitol to protect their various tax breaks. There is the general notion by some that government should just be as small as possible, no matter how ineffective it turns out to be. And there are those that just have don't want these things touched. Mm-hmm. This is to address this issue would require people coming together, thinking long term, and understanding that there's this balance between being smart with taxpayer dollars every day and balancing it with smart investments for the future. That's what smart, successful business people do. No organization or no state, especially the fastest state in the nation, fastest growing state in the nation, ever survived or thrived simply by cutting costs. And they're going to be looking at yet another decrease in the income tax rate, which will take another $60 million off the table. I think, to me, this is fiscally irresponsible, and it's time that serious people came together to address this issue.
Is there certain, and I don't know if you've even looked enough into this, really egregious tax breaks that they're getting? For instance, I mean, you're going to get a lot of pushback from people who go, well, I don't want to be charged, taxes on my haircut. I don't want to be my teenage son who mows my neighbor's lawn. I don't want to have him, all of a sudden having to pay taxes on certain things like that. So I think you get a lot of pushback from the voters on certain things like that. But are there really egregious things, as you mentioned, that if you did have an overview and look into this, that you could find enough people that would agree and say, yeah, we probably shouldn't be giving them a break?
What's egregious is that school districts float bonds and levies every single year just to keep the lights on and just to be able to hire enough teachers to keep class sizes under 40 kids. And I think people actually wouldn't mind paying sales tax on a haircut if, in fact, they didn't have to vote on school bonds and levies every single year. So there's a cost that goes with not addressing an issue like this when you take so much money off the table that it winds up costing you in other ways, whether it's actual dollars or decreased services like EMS services. There are parts of the state that have 45-minute wait time before you can get an EMS service. It's volunteer effort. It's a crazy quilt and patchwork of volunteers providing these services. It really requires stepping back. So what I'm interested in is a review process.
Right.
That's what we really need. Has objective criteria, and that recipients of tax breaks need to come to the table to justify why that tax break should be renewed. And if they can make the business case, absolutely.
You brought up education, or the schools anyway.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the possibility of privatizing public education, or simply, I guess that there's something brand new about the Public Charter Schools Administration, a new decision, and vouchers and everything. What's going on?
They're two separate issues. So we had a bill yesterday in House Education that was a rewrite of the charter school statute, which has been a collection of bills over the last 25 years or so, and they were trying to streamline it and so forth. But the actual title of the bill was Accelerate Charter School Act. And what that bill does, and I voted against it, and in fact, I was the only person on the committee that did vote against it. But the problem is that when you look at, you have to connect the dots between various parts of what's in the bill. And a lot of these little things a lot of these changes affect certain specific situations, but when you add it up, you're creating a framework that I think people should be concerned about. So, for example, you can now put an unlimited number of charter schools under a single LEA, which is like a school district. Mm-hmm. So one governing body. You can have 150 charter schools. Private enterprises can give a charter school as much money as they want, and there are outside forces that want to promote this. And there used to be the requirement of transferring a charter from one private ownership to another, because charter schools are ultimately governed by a private business. You used to have 60% of the teachers and 60% of the parents to approve the transfer of a charter. That goes away.
Yeah.
It's just simply a business deal between two private enterprises.
Representative Steve Berch, thanks for taking a few minutes with us this morning. Much appreciated. I'm sure we'll talk to you before the end of the legislative session coming up. But
anytime.
Thanks for coming in, and thanks for making us look really bad by not even coming close on the answer to your question.
Well, most legislators don't know the answer to that question either.